Want to welcome to another countdown to launch. I'm your host Roberto. I'm here today with Mckay Anderson of Backfire Games. We're going to be talking about snack time, a role in eating. A role in is that what role in
I think I have
mealtime?
a roll and feed game is the
Roll and
tagline.
feed. Yes, roll and feed. I should have written that down. I'm sorry, I didn't write
You're
that
good.
down. No, this is a. I'm gonna have a lot of fun on this episode. Not that I don't have fun in other episodes, but I've known you for quite some time, so I'm so happy that you're able to launch this game. And I just got the email, as I backed this game, that you're fully funded.
Yeah, just as of like an hour ago. It took us almost exactly 24 hours, which is kind of funny.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
congratulations. But first things first, tell us more about yourself and your
All right.
game, please.
Yeah, my name's Mckay Anderson. I started on just like, well, I've been into game design ever since I got out of college. Been into games for my entire life, but I kind of did my first Kickstarter. It was, I worked with a speech pathologist to make these dice that helped kids work on their speech impediments and stuff, which was kind of fun. And it went really well. And then it helped me get a job at Hasbro. So I worked at Hasbro on the entertainment and licensing team, working with brands like Marvel, Disney, Netflix, a whole bunch of partners there doing their sponsored games. And then I went over to Monopoly, where I designed a disgusting number of Monopoly games. You can ask me about that anytime because it's an interesting experience. And then after I left Hasbro to come back to Utah for some family reasons and just next step in career and stuff like that, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do my own games. There's something weird about designing games for other people that like aren't your type of games, you know? It's
Mm.
like I can design children's games, but I'd rather design family, gateway, and strategy games. So anyway,
We,
it's
we've talked about that. You like those lighter games.
yeah, I do like lighter games. I don't know if I like Hi Ho Cherry-O as much as playing Quacks of Quedlinburg, though. Quacks
Okay.
is still light, but there's at least a little bit more depth for me to chew on.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, me and somebody that I worked with at Hasbro, actually, that had also left Hasbro, we live close together, and we are like, you know what? We got to do this. So we came up with Backfire Game Studio, and Snack Time is our first. Obviously, not our first game design. Both of us come from a background of art direction, game design, and product development. But this is our first as a new label. We have 2 or 3 others that should be early next year if things go right with art development and stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, that's it. That's me in a nutshell.
I like that a lot. Your story, it's always fun to hear your story, especially when you get to Monopoly, because you kind of cringe at yourself a little bit.
I do. It's like, and I designed Monopoly.
uh, I want to say boo, but I can't because Monopoly, that's why a lot of us get into what we
Yeah.
do from time to time. Like, let's Monopoly and then Catan and then so on and so forth. But
Yes.
we
I
can talk
do
about
like
that
I
all day
celebrate
long.
the day. I celebrate the day when kids do not learn board games on Monopoly.
Mm,
And I'm pushing toward that better world. And
excellent.
but I do have a lot of respect for Monopoly for what it is.
Awesome. So I want to talk more about snack time. Now we can talk about Monopoly all day, but we're here for
Right.
your Kickstarter,
Right.
the Kickstarter game. How did this game start?
Really interesting story actually. I'm an artist just by trade. I'm an industrial designer, but I got into that world through art. I've always done art. If you want to see some of mine, I'm Mckay by Design. I think that's all one word. Is my Instagram handle for my artwork. But I follow a lot of artists, and I stumbled across our illustrator who is Bodhi. And I Bodhi H. What is his last name? I forget. Anyway, he's Bodhi H on BODIEH on Instagram. Look him up. His stuff is amazing. He's Australian, I believe. Moved to Amsterdam, and I saw his artwork, and I was like, I love this style. It's a nice blend of like kind of Cartoon Network with a little bit more like gristle and grime to it, and I was like, I want this in a game. So I actually reached out to him. He said he'd be interested, and I started designing a game that I thought would showcase his artwork in a really good way and just kind of celebrate this vision I had of how his artwork would fall into a game. So I that's not how I usually design games. It's definitely a little bit backwards of how I usually do it, but because of that whole process, it just went really smoothly from like the vision of the game and applying the art, which is usually a huge barrier to overcome. You have the game and getting the art to support everything and kind of the overall feel of the game is usually a big hurdle, but that was literally the easiest part of this process, which was nice.
That's awesome. I think we have actually had that conversation before too. That art can either make or break a game. You could have the best mechanics in the world
Yeah.
and a nice cohesive game, but if you see a lot of one undesirable color or the
Hmm.
illustrations are just kind of meh,
Yeah.
it's not going to do well,
And
unfortunately.
that's like definitely how I feel. I know some people don't get into the artwork quite as much, but I mean, it's probably a good 80% of what I care about. Obviously, if the game is horrible, it falls flat. But I mean, I'll play games like Santorini, even though I don't like the game that much. I love how it feels to play, just the
Yeah,
artwork, the feel of the components, stuff like that. So it's
yeah,
huge for me personally. So it's huge for our company, Backfire Games, to have that. But obviously, we want to make good games too, because I'm a game designer at heart.
excellent. How'd you come up with the theme?
So the theme was actually interesting. In earlier versions, it was like just eating people. So I started with kind of like roll and writes have been an interesting thing to me for a while. I feel like it's an untapped category of games. Um, and so I started with this idea of like connecting pipes. I thought about like a waterworks type game and stuff like that, and it just needed that. I have a pretty dark sense of humor, so it needed a little bit of that to it. And so I was like, oh my gosh, of course, like it's a sewer network. You're eating people, and so we started with just like a very classic, like here are goal cards that you're trying to get to, and you're just like racing other people for them. It just didn't feel like it had very much that was interesting about it. So over like a lot of iterations and play tests, we kind of got to this point where like they walk through the city past these different sewer entrances. So while you can do your best to plan a little bit, there's a little bit of just like the chaos of these monsters just like eating people as they walk past. Um, and then one big major gameplay development that kind of lent a lot to both the story and the overall gameplay design was we wanted it to be playable with more than just like the four people at the table. It was developed during the height of the pandemic. I knew that games were evolving in a way that they needed to be, at least in some sense, playable with a larger number of people. So um, that's where snack time came from. Before the people were getting eaten and removed from the board, but then it kind of evolved into no, you're not eating them. You're just like, biting off a limb as they walk past, and they can still get back to their house. You're just, it's nothing that they won't recover from.
Nice.
So that's where the name Snack Time came from, was in an effort to make this game super approachable and really easy to play over long distance and while social distancing and stuff like that.
Awesome. I remember you did something on your personal Instagram account where you did the Railroad Inc.
Hmm. Yep.
over a week or two or something like that. Was that about when you decided to go with a roll and write?
That's a good question. I could probably look back and try and gauge if that played a part of it. It's definitely around that time because I hit roll and writes hard. I think the first one I got was Railroading, and then I got Welcome to Ganshon Clever, or That's Pretty Clever. Um, I got all of those pretty close to each other. Also, the Lanterns roll and write. Um, and it was just on my mind. So what came first, the chicken or the egg? It's kind of hard to tell,
Yeah.
but it was definitely that phase where I was just like, roll and writes have so much potential. And I think as a category, I mean, it's not even a category in Board Game Geek, which I was very intrigued with.
Mm.
They have like, I think they have writing as one, but that like encompasses also like note taking and stuff. So anyway, I was like, this feels like a category that, once again, going back to Hasbro, hasn't been like largely expanded upon since Yahtzee. And I'm like, there's a whole category out here that I want to take a stab at.
I never even put that together. I that Yahtzee is a roll and write.
Right.
I was like 2 months ago, years old. I was like, oh crap, that's right. Yahtzee is a roll and write, and
Right.
it functions. It's super functional. It plays really well. But
Hmm.
that is a great point that you have there.
Yeah.
So did want to ask you about play testing, because we're in the pandemic, or
Hmm.
you created this game within the height of the pandemic. How did you
Yep.
go about play testing this game?
It's a great question. Apart from the game itself being like very possible to play virtually and like across distances, as long as they can see, because you don't really take turns, so I can roll the dice for the group the entire
Mhm.
time, and it doesn't affect the experience. Um, we had my business partner and I had kind of been part of like the social bubble circle the entire time. We still wore masks and stuff because we didn't want to like expose our other circles. So
Yep.
we would still meet fairly often and play. And then I have a very large family. I'm the fifth of 10 children.
Wow.
So if you consider my family a social circle, which we did, there were actually a decent number of people to pass the game around, get opinions. And then past that, it's an excellent solo game. I've played this countless times just as myself, going through and shooting for a high score, working on bugs and kinks and weird things that can happen that way. So those three things combined made it pretty possible. I'm still anxious to do kind of like, now that we're funded, I definitely want to do another round of more blind play sessions, because especially once we get the rules written, and make sure that we have the rules in a format that it's easy for people to get on board. I do want to do a group of blind play sessions where I just send them out and I'm not even present, just to
Mhm.
get people's feedback in that way. So I do feel like that piece has been missing, and I'm anxious to kind of blow that out into a larger study as we get hopefully some of our backers and all of their experience, in order to kind of put the finishing touches or the final touches on this game.
I am ready and available for whenever you need to
Cool.
do that.
You're in the game. We haven't talked about that yet.
Oh, we will get to that. We will get to that,
All
because
right. All
it's
right.
kind of back to that art. The artwork is really cool. It's a
Thank you. Thank you.
great job with the art. So I'm excited to just have that on my table.
Right.
Um, Within the playtesting, because I still wanted to chat about that quickly.
Hmm.
Did the game evolve a ton from the initial game that you created to having it be on Kickstarter?
Um, there were major evolutions, but not as much as a lot of games evolve in my experience. Generally, what I'll do when I start a new game is I'll kind of put together the theme and kind of the overall mechanics that I think fit with the theme, and then I'll usually make three completely different rule sets. I mean, we're talking going from a board to tile laying, like completely like drastically different concepts. And then usually I'll choose one or two of those to prototype first. And then based on that, kind of go back to the original three, see if we want to keep going down that road or if we want to do a quick lane shift. Um, and then just kind of like keep that process going. This one was a little bit different because I knew I wanted a roll and write. So it kind of came with that initial like core value. I knew the art style that I wanted that informed the theme very heavily. So already having those two things set in stone, the game was already probably a good 70% formed in my head.
Okay.
The major things that came up were just making it interesting. Some problems. I think I have a very early prototype here, where, oh no, this isn't even the earliest. But on a lot of these, we had just like cards that would have a constant value. Oh, there were flashlights at one point. So some people would call the cops and some people would like go looking for each other. And then we ended up saying like, you know what? The flashlights don't really add anything to the game. They're just another thing to track. So we stripped that out to make it more accessible. So that was one major change. The other was how it works is to take a bite out of the person, you need the two symbols that are on the card as well as the two neighboring symbols on the cards next to
Okay.
it. That was probably the biggest aha moment, because we arrived at this point where we were like, all right, it's pretty easy to memorize that the highest value pedestrian needs 2 tentacles. And if you've played a decent amount, then you're going to reserve one monster with 2 tentacles in order to eat that person. Um, and so what the major shift that came was when you use those adjacent cards, so that the requirements fluctuate anywhere from needing no symbols on there to 2 or 4, and it just kind of is randomized. So you can plan a little bit, but at the end of the day, you may just have to wait until your opportunity comes to strike.
Oh man, oh man. Let me play test this right now. Send me a PDF
I
while
should.
we're doing this. No, that's really cool. That's really cool.
We should actually just play. I mean, we should schedule another one of these, and we'll just play virtually to demonstrate how easy it is to play remotely.
Yeah, that'd be great. I am absolutely here for that.
Cool.
I'm here for that. Cool. So you already launched.
Yep.
You're on Kickstarter. How was it doing the Kickstarter page or getting that
Um,
together?
Holy cow, the work that's involved there. I mean, I kind of knew it before, but when I did my Kickstarter previously, there wasn't a lot of graphic support that was needed because it was just dice and it came in a little canvas bag. Like there was no box art, no real theme, because that was kind of the point of it, was like the kids build the stories and the theme and all of that. And so I had no idea how much additional artwork needed to be made, how much copy needed to be like reviewed from different people. And man, I always like scroll through Kickstarter pages and I'm like, why did they make this so long? But then
Yeah.
once you start like putting everything in there that people need to know, even down to like shipping, or like if you're a retailer, how to get in contact with us and how this is going to work for distribution, like all of those things, it just piles up. And to make a Kickstarter page, maybe I succeeded here and maybe I didn't. But to make a Kickstarter page that is like cohesive and kind of flows through from story to how the game's played to what you're going to get based on different pledge levels, it's really difficult to make that just a kind of a experience that you can just keep scrolling and
Mhm.
consuming the information. It's really easy to get it to feel just like very chopped up and segmented. So I don't know. I was baffled by the amount of work that goes into Kickstarter. It's marketing investment at the end of the day,
Yeah.
but holy cow, it was a lot of work.
But actually, that's the first time it's been put to me like that. We all scroll through Kickstarter like, oh wow, there's more. It keeps going, it keeps
Hmm.
going, it keeps going. But then with you talking about it, it's kind of like that. Just that is, it's a landing page and just keeps
Right.
going until it ends. So it has to be appealing from beginning to end. Were there any challenges with creating that Kickstarter page?
Um, the biggest challenge is always like you want it to feel fairly immersive, right? There's
Mm,
a world you're building here and you want people to get a feel for the game. I think the hardest part was executing a mixture of tone versus visuals that just kind of support all of that. We wanted this to be a very family friendly game, although you're taking bites out of people walking through the city. I get the humor's a little bit dark and sarcastic, but that's part of the reason why we supported it with the artwork that we did. Was we wanted it to feel a little tongue-in-cheek, very sarcastic and cartoony, and just with a little bit of that like dry humor that you can easily brush off as like this is over the top and a little bit ridiculous. And so getting that tone to work right throughout the entire thing, to where you kind of got a feel of what it was going for, and that you're kind of in this like fictional world of monsters just taking bites out of people as they walk down the street, is not that weird of a thing. That was probably one of the more difficult parts, past just all of the little visuals that you need
mm,
that just take time.
yeah. I want to go into your illustration here. I have your email pulled up that you are fully funded. I want
You cut out for me. I don't know if I'm still alive, but you're a bit frozen. I'll text you real quick. Not exactly sure if I should just keep talking.